Xena, warrior princess, a fistful of dinars. In the days when legends walked the earth and gods still whispered to mortals, there lived a warrior whose name echoed through every village and mountain pass. Xena, the warrior princess. Once feared as a ruthless warlord, she had cast aside the blood-soaked path of conquest to seek redemption. With her sword and unbreakable will, she now journeyed across the ancient world, protecting the innocent and righting the wrongs she once helped to sow. One fateful day, beneath the shadow of a rugged mountain range, a storm began to brew, not of thunder or rain, but of destiny. Word had spread of the fabled treasure of the Sumerians, a hoard whispered about in drunken tales and bedtime stories. Buried long ago, this treasure was no ordinary prize. Among the gold and jewels, it was said to contain the lost key to the Valley of Eternal Life, a place rumored to grant immortality to any who found it. Most dismissed the legend as myth, but others hungered for the promise it held. Xena had heard these tales before, but this time there was a scent of truth on the wind. The death of a warlord named Thersites, an assassin with a notorious reputation, set events into motion. Among his belongings, a fragment of a map had been discovered, one of 4 pieces that, when combined, would lead to the valley. Knowing the chaos that eternal life in the wrong hands could unleash, Xena chose to intervene. And so, she found herself reluctantly joined by 3 companions. There was Gabriel, the bard from Potidaea, and loyal friend who had chosen to follow Xena's path of redemption. Then came Patroclus, a charming mercenary whose roguish grin masked a trail of betrayals. Xena knew him well, for he had once been her lover, a man she had trusted, only to be left brokenhearted. The last was a violent and volatile assassin named Thersites, presumed dead, but now very much alive. He sought the treasure for darker reasons, and his path would twist the group's quest into one fraught with peril. Their journey began across windswept plains and sun-drenched ruins, following leads and chasing fragments of the map. The first piece had already been claimed by Thersites, who now bartered his part of the puzzle in exchange for a share of the prize. The second was said to lie buried in the tomb of Syrax, guarded by a web of traps and curses. The tomb was a maze of echoing corridors and faded hieroglyphs, where each step threatened to awaken some ancient doom. Yet Xena, with her unmatched instincts, navigated the tomb as if it were a familiar battlefield. Together, they claimed the second fragment, etched onto a copper tablet hidden beneath a fallen statue. Along the way, mistrust simmered between the companions. Patroclus, ever the opportunist, flirted with both betrayal and redemption. Gabriel, ever perceptive, questioned his motives, but saw glimpses of decency behind his smirk. Thersites, meanwhile, schemed in the shadows, always watching, always calculating. His eyes gleamed not with the light of discovery, but with the cold fire of vengeance. The third fragment was hidden in the ruins of an abandoned temple, deep in a forest where the trees grew so thick that sunlight barely kissed the ground. The air was thick with magic and memory. Here, Xena faced spectral illusions from her past, a test not of strength, but of resolve. Yet she pressed on, slashing through vines and doubt alike, until the third piece lay in her hand. As the map neared completion, a new dread began to stir. For the final piece was held not in a hidden chamber or tomb, but in the possession of a priestess who had vowed to protect it with her life. Xena knew that others would come seeking the piece, men who would kill without hesitation. They arrived too late to save the priestess, who lay slain by unknown hands. Yet before her death, she had hidden the last fragment and left behind a riddle. Xena, Gabriel, Patroclus, and Thersites worked together, deciphering the clue under the growing shadow of greed. For with the map now whole, the Valley of Eternal Life awaited. But at what cost? As they approached the valley's entrance, tension cracked like lightning through their fragile alliance. Thersites made his move, lashing out with venom and steel. But Xena had anticipated his treachery. A fierce battle erupted, blades flashing, fists flying, the sound of war once more echoing in the land. Thersites fought like a man possessed, but Xena was more than a warrior. She was a legend reborn. With grace and fury, she disarmed him, leaving him unconscious among the rocks. Then came the final trial. Before the valley stood a massive gate, carved with ancient symbols and warnings long forgotten. It opened only to those who possessed the map and the will to face what lay beyond. Inside, time itself seemed to tremble. The air shimmered with an unnatural stillness. At the center of the valley lay a fountain, its waters glowing with a soft golden hue, the source of eternal life. Patroclus approached, awe burning in his eyes. Here was the prize he had chased for years of war and lies. But in that moment, something within him shifted. He turned not to the fountain, but to Gabrielle and Xena. He saw the cost of eternity. To live forever was not a gift, but a burden. To watch the world age and wither. To see every friend lost to time. He chose to walk away. But fate, ever cruel, had other plans. Thersites, regaining consciousness, stumbled into the valley and lunged for the fountain. With madness in his eyes, he drank the sacred water. For a moment he laughed, triumphant, but the valley did not suffer the unworthy. With a roar like breaking stone, the earth shuddered. The sky darkened. The magic of the place, ancient and alive, rejected him. Thersites screamed as his body twisted, consumed by the very force he had tried to master. When silence fell again, nothing remained of him but dust. The valley, having judged them all, began to collapse. The fountain cracked, spilling its golden water into the earth. Xena led the others in a desperate dash toward the exit. Rocks fell, time folded in on itself, and the gates slammed shut behind them. The valley of eternal life was lost once more, sealed by its own wrath, perhaps forever. They emerged into the light of dawn, bruised but alive. Patroclus looked to the horizon, his face no longer that of a scoundrel, but one who had glimpsed something greater than himself. With a quiet nod, he parted ways, vanishing into the morning mist to seek redemption of his own. Xena and Gabrielle stood together watching the sunrise. The world had been spared the curse of immortality. Another day had come, and with it, another journey. The warrior princess, once feared, now walked again beneath the skies of a world she vowed to protect, not for glory or treasure, but for the promise of change. And so the legend continued.